Namaste, everyone. Good afternoon to all of you. I hope you've had a very pleasant Saturday. I am Sweta Rajaram, and I will be moderating the first event of today. I'd just like to extend a very warm welcome to the third event of the Singapore Festival of Hinduism, organized for the first time in Singapore. So this festival will be held from the 20th to the 29th of November 2020, organized by Hindu Center in Singapore. It's packed with 23 events over 10 days, and this online festival aims to inform, educate, and entertain, and is for all Singaporeans to learn more about Hinduism. Today, we have a very, very informative and I'm sure to be enlightening speech on Hindu astrology and planetary effects to be delivered by Mr. Dinesh Cheram. The checking of astrology in one's life, particularly at birth and prior to marriage, is still widely practiced in Singapore amongst Hindus. Indian astrology, also known as Jyothisha, is the traditional Hindu system of astrology where planets or Grahas and their influences on human lives are analysed. The basics on what karma is and how it manifests itself into the system of Indian astrology will be explained, and the purpose of this science and its relevance in today's world will also be discussed. A little bit about Dinesh. He stumbled upon Vedic astrology during his early 20s and was completely fascinated about the insights this ancient science was able to offer. In a quest to understand his own past life karmas and its effect on its present life, he delved into learning and understanding Vedic astrology in depth. He's passionate about helping individuals to overcome their challenges in life and aid them to achieve their goals by applying astrology to interpret information obtained from their birth chart. I'm sure this will be a very, very exciting session, followed by a question and answer session as well. So don't go anywhere. Dinesh, take it away.
Thank you, Sweta. So let me share my screen first. Okay, so here we are. So firstly, I would like to thank Hindu Center for giving me this opportunity to speak on a topic very close to my heart on Hindu astrology and the planetary effects. I also like to thank my gurus who have taught me astrology, my teachers, and my family members whom have constantly supported me in this journey to pursue this journey of astrology. So let's begin. We all have heard about this phrase, life's not fair. Everywhere we go, we hear people complaining that life's not fair. But I would like to, by the end of this session, I would like to provide some answers to this question. And so let's move on. So everybody would have heard about this man, Bill Gates. Who is Bill Gates? Bill Gates is one of the richest men on the planet and the founder of Microsoft. But does Bill Gates deserve to be where he is today? If we look at this question, we need to look at his past. You see, Bill Gates was actually a Harvard University student, but he chose to drop out of school because he wanted to pursue his dreams, his goals. He worked very hard and he founded Microsoft. He worked very hard to actually market this product all across the globe, and he became one of the richest men on the planet. So if we ask this question whether he deserves to be where he is today, definitely he does. Okay, and so life is fair for him. But now let's move on to this person. How many of you all know who is Katharine Jennifer? So Katharine Jennifer is actually, Bill Gates is actually forced to share his wealth with Katharine Jennifer. So who is this lady? So this lady is none other than Bill Gates' daughter. You see, without putting in any efforts, no hard work, nothing, just by being born to Bill Gates, she was blessed to be born into the family of a richest man on the planet, one of the richest men on the planet, and also a great philanthropist. So she was blessed to be born into a very good family. So how is this fair? No effort, nothing, but she's so blessed. So watching this, our ancient Indian sages, they came up with a concept known as karma. Okay, so what is karma? Karma means past life actions or merits influencing your present lives. It could be merits or demerits. So based on that, Katharine Jennifer would have attained lots of past life punyas, merits, and she would have done very little papas, which means the demerits, and therefore she was blessed to be born into such a family in this lifetime, without even putting in any effort in this lifetime alone. So, karma. So, what is karma? Karma, there are three forms of karma. Okay. The first one is Sanchipta karma, the total karmic account from all your previous births. And in this lifetime, we snatch a certain portion of this total karmic account, we snatch a small portion of it, and that is known as prarabdha karma that we bring into this lifetime, and this we will exhaust it completely in this lifetime. But there is also something else known as agami karma, the karma that you attain in this lifetime alone, out of your own purposeful actions, your willful actions, your thoughts, your own actions, your charity, and that is considered as agami karma. So a lot of people have this doubt that if whether life is 100% destined. Of course, it's not. Okay, you have a certain portion of destiny, but there's also a certain portion of agami karma, free will. And karma is actually alterable. So using this agami karma, you can actually alter your prarabdha karma. So in the spiritual world, this is known as karma. And what is karma? Karma means past life actions influencing your present and your future. So for every action, there will be consequences. In the scientific world, there is also a similar theory. It's known as Newton's third law. What is Newton's third law? For every action, there will be an equal and opposite reaction. The scientific world and the spiritual world, they have always been considered as two different entities, completely different. And the entire population believes in science because science can be proven. But not everybody believes in, only a small portion believes in spirituality. But if we are able to find an interlinking, overlapping theory, problem solved. Everybody believes in science, now everybody will believe in spirituality. So our ancient Indian sages, they found this overlapping theory. So what's that theory? That theory is none other than Jyothish. Okay. So what is Jyothish? Jyothish is also known as Indian Astrology. And it is actually part of our Vedangas. Okay. So we have 6 Vedangas and Jyothish is actually one of them. And what does Jyothish actually mean? Jyothish means the light and heavenly body connected to one's karma. So what does light actually do? Light dispels darkness. What are darkness? Darkness are negative concepts such as no God, no higher being, no supreme energy. And everything happens by accident. Does everything really happen by accident? So today I'm here speaking in front of you. You are on the other side of the screen. Is this happening by accident? Of course not. You see, Hindu Center had a pre-planned program. And they wanted to engage someone to speak on Indian astrology. So they invited Dinesh Chiran to come here and speak in front of all of you on Indian astrology. But what brought us here together today? What was it? It was the clock. On 21st November, when the clock, the needles of the clock pointed to a clock, we all assembled here. I assembled on this side of the screen, you assembled on the other side of the screen. In the same way, in the sky, there is also a clock with needles. The needles are known as the Grahas. A particular soul, based on its pre-planned program, known as karma, prarabdha karma, a particular soul takes birth. Based on a particular planetary configuration, that soul takes birth. And the life that unfolds from then on, it is to a very large extent predestined. So that soul, the father that the soul meets, the mother, the younger siblings, the elder siblings, and then the future that unfolds, such as the soul's education, career, spouse, children, it's all to a large extent predestined, predetermined. So, to a large extent, this is also alterable by your own agami karma that I introduced beforehand. You can use your agami karma, your own actions to alter this predestined prarabdha karma. So let's move forward. So what are grahas? Grahas means celestial beings able to influence human lives. A lot of people have actually made a mockery out of Indian astrology, saying that we consider everything as planets. No. We never called them planets. We just called them grahas. What is graha? Graha means celestial beings able to influence the human lives. So some people say the sun, the moon are star and satellites. They are not supposed to be considered as planets. Yeah, we do agree with them. We never called them planets. We just called them grahas. So let me first introduce to you the first seven grahas. They are known as the sun, the Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. This we all know. In Indian astrology, we have two additional grahas. They are known as Rahu and Ketu. They are known as shadow grahas. So what does shadow grahas mean? They don't have a physical form. So what are they exactly? So basically, we have the Earth's orbit around the sun, and then we also have the moon's orbit around the Earth. These two planes, when they intersect, the two intersecting points are known as the Rahu and Ketu. The descending lunar node, which is called, it's a node, it's called Ketu, and the ascending lunar node is known as Rahu. So we have this question, what is the significance of Rahu and Ketu? So basically, what do they mean? Whenever Rahu, Ketu, the sun, moon, earth, they all come in a straight line. They all intersect one another. We have a natural phenomenon that happens known as eclipse. Okay. 2000 years ago, without the use of any modern technology, no telescope, no Google, nothing, just by observing the sky, our ancient Indian sages were able to pen down in their panchangs when the next eclipse would happen for the next 100, 200 years. When are the eclipses going to happen? If today I'm going to ask you all to raise up your hands and tell me when is the next eclipse about to happen, probably you wouldn't know. You'll be scratching your head. Oh my God, you will need Google to help you tell you when is the next eclipse. But our ancient Indian sages were able to find the formula for Rahu and Ketu. They calculated their movements and they were able to pen down in their panchangs when the next eclipse were about to happen. So that shows the greatness, their intellectual capability. We really need to give them lots of respect. And so let's move forward. So let me explain about the 9 grahas and their significations. This is also known as Karaga Tattvas. Okay. So the sun actually represents, in a person's natal chart, the sun actually represents father, the soul, the government, and heat. Actually, the sun represents many other things. So today we don't have so much of time. So I just give you a very brief explanation of what a sun actually represents on birth chart and the other planets too, and other grahas too. So the moon in one's natal chart represents mother, mind, and comforts. The Mars represents one's strength, courage. It also represents armed forces. Mercury represents intellectual, speech, good in maths, Ganita. So people whom are quite good in maths, Ganita, calculations, they usually have a strong Mercury. In fact, like accountants. So let me give some additional details. So for example, an accountant, he will have the Mercury either influencing his 10th house, which is the house of profession. I will explain this later on, or the house of wealth or the house of income. Okay, next we will introduce Jupiter. Jupiter is actually the teacher. Okay, so Jupiter is called Guru, and so he's known as the teacher. He's also known as knowledge. He's also a consultant. So those people who have Jupiter influencing their karma sthana, their karma houses, then they can become a teacher or they will become a consultant, something like that. Venus indicates marriage and pleasures. Saturn indicates Ayush, longevity. And then we have the last two, the shadow grahas. Rahu is always unorthodox. It could be unorthodox career. It could be anything that is unorthodox. So some people who have Rahu influencing their 7th house. 7th house is the house of marriage. I'll explain this later. Such people tend to have unorthodox marriage. Rahu also represents materialism, and Ketu represents spirituality, religion, moksha. So try to remember, Ketu represents moksha, Mercury represents intellectual, Sun represents father. So just remember these three. I will tell you why later. So now, let me introduce you to the concept of zodiac belt. and the 27 nakshatras. So we have the zodiac belt here. We have the sun in the center. We have Earth's orbit around the sun. So say example, Earth is somewhere here. Okay. So on the backdrop of the sun, we will see Aquarius. Just take note of this. We have sun here. We have Aquarius here. And then imagine we are here, somewhere around here now, example. So what from Earth, what will we see? Where is the sun? The sun will be placed in the sign of Aquarius. This is just for an example. So in the same way, there are planets, the other planets that is going around the sun. Okay, in the same way, from the Earth, we will see where are these planets placed and what is the backdrop. Then in our Rasi chart, we place these planets on this backdrop. So let's move forward. Okay, so this is known as the South Indian chart. So we have the 12 Rashis. So they have to be calculated in a clockwise direction. So the first sign is known as Aries, Mesha Rasi. The second sign is known as Rishabham, Taurus Rasi. The third one is known as Gemini, Midhuna Rasi. The fourth one is Cancer, Kadaga Rashi. The fifth is Leo, Shimma Rasi. Sixth is Virgo, Kanni Rashi. Seventh is Libra, Tula Rashi. Eighth is Virchaga Rashi, also known as Scorpio. Ninth is Dhanusha Rasi, Sagittarius. 10th is Makara, Capricorn. 11th is Aquarius, Kumbha Rashi. And 12th is Pisces, Meena Rashi. So these Rashi each Rashis can be further divided into 3 nakshatras. So here we have Mesha Rasi, which is Aries, can be further divided into 3 nakshatras. So it is the first portion of Mesha Rasi will be the Ashwini Nakshatra. It's a constellation. The second part will be Bharani Nakshatra. The third one will be Kartikeya Nakshatra. And Kartikeya Nakshatra is actually shared across both Aries and Rishabha. Okay. So if now, at the time of your birth, anyone's birth, if the moon is placed, for example, the moon is found to be in the sign of Mesha Rasi, then your Janma Rashi is known as Mesha. So when you visit a temple, when the priest asks you, what is your Rashi, you will tell him you are Mesha Rasi. So automatically the priest will know that you can only be any of these 3 nakshatras, Ashwini, Bharani or Kartikeya. So he will ask you what's your nakshatra and then you tell him, maybe you are Bharani nakshatra, then you will tell him you are Bharani nakshatra. So this is how it works. Okay, this is based on the time of your birth, at the time of your birth where the moon was. So let's move forward. Let me now introduce to you the concept of planetary ownership. So each graha, okay, each graha owns a particular sign. So Aries is owned by Scorpio. Sorry, Aries is owned by Mars and Scorpio is also owned by Mars. These are all fixed. Okay. Rishabha or Taurus is owned by Venus and Gemini, Midhuna is owned by Mercury. Cancer, Kadagam is owned by Moon. Leo, Simbam is owned by Sun. Sun is the owner. Virgo, Kanni is owned by Mercury. Libra, Tulam is owned by Venus. Scorpio, Virchagam is owned by Mars. Sagittarius, Dhanusha is owned by Jupiter. Saturn owns Capricorn and Makara. Saturn also owns Aquarius and Kumbha. Jupiter owns Pisces and Meena. So from this, what we can observe is, except the Sun and Moon, the rest of the grahas, they own 2 signs each. So for example, Mercury owns Gemini and Virgo. Venus owns Taurus and Rishabha. Sorry, Taurus and Libra. Mars owns Aries and Scorpio. Jupiter owns Pisces and Sagittarius. Saturn owns Aquarius and Capricorn. So this is all fixed. You know, they are always the owners of these signs. So let's move forward. There is a very important concept in Indian astrology known as Lagna. It is very, very important. That is the starting point in astrology. Okay. So say at the time of your birth, so someone was born in NUH, okay, Singapore Hospital, NUH. And if you look at the east, so that baby, when he was born, if you look at the east, so you look at East Coast, the sign that rises from East Coast, okay, along East Coast, that the particular sign that rises, that becomes his Lagna, the first sign. It is known as, for example, in this case, it is known as Capricorn. Okay. So then what happens? So we are back to this Rasi chart. This is known as a Rasi chart. We will have the Lagna, the first house, as Capricorn. Okay. Subsequently, we can count the rest of the houses as the second house, third house, fourth house, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th. So it goes in a clockwise fashion with first house as Capricorn, based on what we saw just now. At the time of the birth, when you look across to the east, the rising sign, that becomes your first house, known as Lagna. So in Indian astrology, the houses also have significations. So the first house represents self, intellect, and strength. See, once again, there are many other significations to the first house, like the brains. This is also the head is also the first house significations. But we do not have too much of time here, so I'll just go through very briefly what each house represents. The second house represents speech, family, and wealth. The third house represents courage, younger siblings. Fourth house is the house of comforts. Fifth house, children, creativity. Sixth house, debts, diseases, and enemies. Seventh house is the house of wife. Okay, your spouse. Eighth house is the house of longevity. Ninth house is the house of father, dharma, fortune. 10th house is the house of profession, karma. 11th house is the house of gains. And lastly, the 12th house is the house of loss, or also known as moksha. So let's take an example. Okay. At the time of birth, this particular person, okay, if you look to the east, the rising sign was Cancer. So you can see the rising sign, it's indicated by this stroke, it is Cancer. So that becomes the first house. So subsequently, again, in a clockwise fashion, you count 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. Now, the first sign, the first house, from based on my previous slide, you can see the first house is the house of self, intellect, and strength. The second house means speech, family, wealth. Third house is courage, younger siblings. Fourth house is comforts, mother, so forth, so on. Okay. Now, let me introduce back the owners. Okay, so we have the first house is owned by Moon. The second house is owned by Sun. The third house is owned by Mercury. So if you see, I've written the sign, the Graha that owns that sign and the superscript. So say in a particular person's birth chart, at the time of his birth, the second lord, the Sun, is placed in the 10th house. What does this mean? It could mean that this person might be a good speaker, might do, so there's an interlink between his family and his profession, because the Sun owns the house of family and he's placed in the 10th house, the house of profession. So there might be a link between the family and his profession. Okay. The other karaka of the Sun itself, the Sun is, remember I told you previously, the Sun is actually the father. So maybe this person will do his father's business, his father's profession. He carries it on. Next thing. Now we have introduced Mercury. The third house, Lord, is placed in the 11th house, the house of gains. So what does it mean? Maybe the younger siblings becomes this person's gains. Okay. And Mercury, what is Mercury? Mercury is intellectual. So maybe this person is also very intellectual. Let me then introduce to you another graha, Ketu. Ketu in the 12th house. Ketu himself is known as a spiritual graha, Jnana Karaka. Okay. He also represents moksha, as I told you earlier on. And the 12th house is also, though it's the house of loss, it's also the house of moksha. You lose yourself to attain moksha. That is our ultimate goal, to be released from the cycle of birth and death. Okay, we want to join the Supreme Soul. So, for example, this is a particular person's chart. Let me now place all the Grahas. So we have the Sun in the 10th, Mercury as the owner of the 3rd and 12th, in the 11th. In the 12th house, we have Ketu. Then in the first house, we have Moon, Jupiter. So in astrology, there are many other things. So this is also known as Gajagesari Yogam. This is known as exaltation of Sun. So there are many other things. I won't be able to cover it in a short span of time. Okay, so whose chart is this? Make a guess. So this is none others than Lord Sri Rama's chart. So like I told you, this particular person would have continued his family tradition, family profession, maybe follow the father, he was a king. The younger sibling was gainful. You know, we know his story. His younger siblings were a great help to him. And after that, he attained moksha. You know, he went to Vaikuntham. So we can see that, you know, astrology to a large extent it works. Okay. So Lord Sri Rama's chart has always been used as an example in a lot of our case studies in astrology. So in astrology, there is another system known as Dasha System. Okay, how you calculate it is it's based from the natal moon's position. Okay, so it's actually from the nakshatra. So the nakshatra lord will start off his Dasha system. That's a bit difficult to explain here, but there is a system to it. Okay, we have separated it by years in Indian astrology system, the Vimshotri Dasha system. So when someone starts off with Ketu Dasha, he will have 7 years. Say he was born exactly at the 0 degree mark, then he will have 7 years of Ketu Dasha, after which, so for anybody, after they complete their Ketu Dasha, they will start off their Venus Dasha, which is 20 years. Then you will run your Sun Dasha, which is 6 years, Moon Dasha 10 years, Mars 7, Rahu 18 years, Jupiter 16 years, Saturn 19 years, and Mercury 17 years. The total value adds up to 120 years. So, so sometimes when you visit an astrologer, the astrologer will tell you you are running through, say, the Sun Dasha. Currently, you are running through Sun Dasha. And so with the Dasha, so 6 years of Sun Dasha, you will also have the Antar Dasha, the subcategories. So within that 6 years, there will be a small portion of Sun Antar Dasha. Then you will have Moon Antar Dasha, Mars Antar Dasha. So what is this significance in Indian astrology? Basically, so say for someone who have Sun as the second lord, same as Sri Rama's chart, Sun as the second lord, he is placed in, so in this example, let's say someone has the Sun placed in the 11th house. So the second house, the house of wealth, the 11th house is the house of gains. So when he's running through these 6 years of the Sun's Dasha, he will attain lots of gains, or he will attain gains through his speech. This is for an example. So we also have the Antardasha, that Graha, what it represents in the birth chart, that matters will also manifest. Okay. So moving forward, let me now start with the general questions in Indian astrology. So is astrology to be taken as a guide? Definitely. You see, your birth chart is there for you. So and then you have many other factors such as the transits. So recently Jupiter actually transited, okay, based on Bhakia Panchang, it transited on the 16th November in Singapore. And based on Drik Kanida, it transited on the 20th November. There is 2 types of Panchangs in Indian astrology. And we have many factors to take into consideration. And based on all these factors, we will know when are the good times and when are the bad times. You see, karma, the good thing about karma is it is timed. So when during the good times, we should start off auspicious events such as marriages, starting a new business, or getting yourself, higher education. Try to do it during the good times. Okay. So good times, we can make use of another concept known as muhurta. So it is known as the auspicious election of timings. So we can use that to also identify good periods in a day, avoiding the bad periods such as Rahu Kal, Yamagandam, all these all these periods can be avoided you find the good periods and you do the auspicious events. So karma is also timed. At the same time, you have the muhurta, transits, so many factors that can be taken into consideration to assist anyone. So astrology can be used as a great guide. Next, so why does one visit an astrologer? Okay, so to answer this question, say you buy a smart TV at home, okay, and you are using this TV. I give you the remote control, install the TV for you, you start using the TV. You will be able to use the TV, you will be able to change the channel, you will be able to do many things. But 1 month later, I provide you with something. This is known as the instruction manual. Then you realize, oh my God, I can do so many things with the instruction manual on my TV. I can connect it to the YouTube, I can screen mirror, I can Bluetooth connection, I can watch internet. You know, there's so many things that I can do with the help of an instruction manual that I didn't know. So a smart TV is known as a very sophisticated system, but the most sophisticated system on this planet is actually the human body itself. We are the most sophisticated system here. And the instruction manual for us is actually our birth chart, our horoscope. So it has the do's and the don'ts. So if we are able to carry out the do's in a proper way, then we will be better able to use this sophisticated system. So that is why one visits an astrologer. Next, why do people visit an astrologer once in 2 to 3 years? So these are questions actually posted to me by the general public and also by Hindu Center themselves while I was actually going through the slides with them. So why do people visit an astrologer? Basically, you see, like I told you, karma is timed, and at any one point of time, you will be running through a particular dasha, antardasha, transits will be also taking place. Many grahas are also moving. You know, we do not only take into consideration the Jupiter's and Saturn's transit or Rahu Ketu's transit. You know, this has been given lots of importance. But the other grahas also play a part in one's life events by their transits, such as the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars. Okay, so many factors. So, and based on these factors, your karma is timed. It can be either positive, it can be negative, or it can be average. So that is why people visit an astrologer once in 2 to 3 years to know what is there for them at that particular moment and what are the steps that they can take up. Okay. Last question. So this is question 3. Sorry, it's actually question 3. So accuracy of an astrologer. So what is an accuracy? How do we judge the accuracy of an astrologer? Most important is the astrologer should be knowledgeable. See, there's a lots of text in Indian astrology. You know, there's lots of courses in Indian astrology. So as much as possible, always, you know, read. You know, astrology is like a deep sea. You know, it's like an ocean. So it's not so easy to say that, you know, I'm an expert in astrology. No one is an expert in astrology. You can never be an expert in astrology because it's like an ocean. Okay, so we constantly upgrade ourselves and we constantly read lots of books and gain our knowledge. Secondly, the accuracy part. So in Indian astrology, as taught by my guru, there is this concept known as stack up concept. So from one angle, say maybe the sun, which represents father, is badly placed in someone's chart. Okay. Then again, the 9th house. So the 9th house also represents father. So that particular graha, that owner is also badly placed. Then we have many other charts also in Indian astrology. We have something known as Dwadamsha chart, D12. So that we can use to study our parents. Even in that chart, there is some affliction. On top of that, we have malefics influence. So in Indian astrology, there's a concept known as malefics, natural malefics. So the Saturn, Mars, Rahu, Ketu, they are known as great malefics. When they are influencing, when they are afflicting the sun, and they are afflicting the 9th house, you know, so in many angles, we see that there's a lots of afflictions to the father matters. then we can say that something happened to the father. Maybe the father was separated at a very young age from the child, or maybe the father passed away, when the child was just born, or maybe the parents divorced. So it could be any of these. Okay, so this is how you stack up. You look at many factors, many permutations, combinations are there. You look at all these factors, and then you come to a judgment. What could have happened? So this is how Indian astrology is all about. So I hope I have given a very brief understanding on how you study a chart, what are the factors in Indian astrology, the Grahas. There are many other things. Okay, so for those whom are interested, you can read the classical text. I have it here with me. So this is known as Brahat Hora Shastra. This is actually the compendium of Indian astrology. So we have 2 volumes of this book. You can read this book. This is one of the first greatest works by Parashara, okay, Vyasa's father, and also Falatipika. This book is also very good. Or you can also read Drigu Sutra. This is for the start. Then there are many other books that one can read to gain their astrological, those who are interested in astrology. Okay, so I have come to the end of my session. So I think Sweta, you can take over.
Hi, yes, thank you for that very, very informative session, Dinesh. I think I learned a lot. I think we have some very interesting and exciting questions here for you. So I'll just pose them to you and you can sort of answer them one by one.
Sure.
What struck me as I was listening to your presentation is how young you are, or how young you look. It's often youths, if I can call myself that, youths of my age look at our parents and see them interested in astrology, in Rahu Kalam and various other things. I'd like to know a little bit more about, your journey. How did you get so interested in this given your relative young age?
Okay, so I'm actually 31 this year.
Still quite young, lah. Still quite young.
Thank you. So how it started off, you see, prior to this, I didn't believe in astrology. I had very, totally no belief. In fact, when I visit temples, I don't even go around the Grahas or anything like that. But what happened was, my eldest brother got married. So this is a true story. So he got married, and my eldest brother, his marriage was an unorthodox one. So slightly different. So his spouse was of a different religion. So my parents, they went to visit an astrologer. They gave that astrologer his birth chart, and that astrologer, even without, he didn't even know my brother. He looked at the chart and he said that this boy will marry someone of a different religion, something unorthodox in his marriage. So he had Rahu in his seventh house, in the house of marriage. And this boy will be in overseas. So my brother is actually in the Middle East. So when my parents came back home and they told me, I was very surprised, or shocked, how could someone actually predict so accurately about my brother, even without knowing him? So that is when, I was quite interested. So I started reading up on the internet. And then when I visited Little India, there is a bookshop. There used to be a bookshop. I think it's known GGS. Okay, it's an Indian bookshop. It is not there any longer. So I bought a book on Indian astrology, like the fundamentals of Indian astrology. So I started reading, and then I was so, within like 2 weeks, I completed the book.
Wow.
I was so, yeah. So it's actually a thin book, it's not really very okay. So then I was so fascinated by this, and then it just happened, I started looking at charts, I started studying, and then I traveled to India. So I went to Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan to study under K.N. Rao, and I learned lots of insights about Indian astrology in Delhi. And then I came back. I also constantly keep in touch with one of very prominent astrologers in Singapore. He's no more here. His name is Ganamurthy. He's also like my guru. He used to be in the Ishu Mariamman temple. We used to talk for a few hours. Even my wife was like, oh my God, how can you be speaking with him? But he used to share lots of his knowledge, his experience. I gained from there. And then after that, I also learned astrology from someone known as E.K. Dilip Kumar. He's also my mentor in astrology. So that's how the journey started. And then I was also blessed because I get to see lots of charts. These days a lot people do consult, and So I get to study lots of charts. So the theory part is important, but it's the practical that makes the difference. You need to look at charts to come to a conclusion.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for that. I mean, you talked about your brother's, sort of unorthodox wedding and sort of jumping off from that. I think your presentation also talked about auspicious timings, and I think we have a question here. In horoscope matching for grooms and brides, what exactly is being matched? Also, what exactly is Chevai dosham or other doshams in a person's birth chart, and why is it particularly important to look for them while matching for marriage prospects?
Okay, so the first thing that we need to look into a birth chart is actually, okay, so we started off with Sabbai dosham. What is Sabba dosham? It's known as Kuja dosham also, okay? Actually, the influence of Mars. Whenever Mars is placed in 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, and 12, he actually causes the Sabbai dosham. The 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, 12 houses, he causes the Sabbai dosham. Why? Because, for example, I will not go through everything, just for example, say if he's placed in the first house, he aspects, his seventh aspect, which is malefic aspect, which is not good, falls on the seventh house, which is the house of marriage. Okay. And so it afflicts that house. It afflicts the matters relating to marriage. So, for example, if he's placed in the second house, so maybe can I share my screen?
Sure.
Okay, so we have this here. Okay, for example, if you have Mars in the first house, if we place Mars here, so let me remove this word. Okay, and what he does is his seventh aspect will fall on the seventh house, which is the house of wife, the house of marriage matters. And then if we place the same Mars now in the second house, the seventh aspect of Mars will fall on the eighth house. The eighth house is actually known as the house of longevity of marriage. So in the same way, in the fourth house, his fourth aspect. So the Mars has also another aspect known as the fourth aspect. That aspect will fall on the seventh house, which is the house of marriage. So he afflicts that. Okay, this is something that we need to look at. And this is known as Kuja dosham or Savvai dosham. So how you match a horoscope is, in Indian astrology, if someone has Savvai dosham, then you need to match it with somebody else who has Savvai dosham also. That person also must have Mars in any of these houses, 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, or 12. So this is Savvai dosham. The next thing is what we need to look at, other matters will be the nakshatra matching. So in Indian astrology, there is two types. One is the 36 points nakshatra matching. So these two, the boys nakshatra and the girls nakshatra should match. Okay, it should get above 18 points. It's a total of 36 points. As long as it gets more than 18 points, then that matching passes, and therefore you can say that they can get married. And then in the South Indian astrology, they use this thing known as the 10 portams, the 10 portams.
10 portam, yeah, 10 portams.
Yeah. Okay, so they look at that, and then you need to pass in that also. You need to have at least a score of 5 and above. Okay. On top of that, we also need to look at the seventh lord. So, for example, someone Saturn in this is the seventh house, seventh lord of Saturn. If he's placed in Dushta Sthanam, so Dushta Sthanam is known as 6, 8, and 12. Okay, they are known as not good houses. If he's placed anywhere, Saturn is placed here or maybe here or here, what happens is, he has a marriage dosha. So when you're matching that particular person's horoscope, you need to make sure that the other person, the spouse, has a very strong seventh lord. So maybe the Saturn can be, okay, for that particular person, having the same Lagna here, the seventh lord can be here, in the own sign. Whenever a planet is placed in its own house, own sign, it's very strong. Or if it's placed in the house of Tula, which is exalted, Saturn gets exalted here, then you can say that it is a very strong marriage chart. So you can, you can match that horoscope with the person who has a weak marriage chart. You understand?
Yeah, no. Yes,
then
I follow what you're saying.
Yeah. Lastly, there's something known as Dasha Sandhi. Like I told you, after your Sun Dasha, you start off your Moon Dasha. So 6 months before the change, it is known as Dasha Sandhi. It's like a a change, a huge tidal change. So during those periods, 6 months before and 6 months after the Dasha Sandhi, you try not to get married. So this is how you actually match a horoscope.
Wonderful. We have a question from one of our viewers on Facebook Live. And the question really is, if there's an error in recording the time of childbirth, will it affect the child's kundali and thus future predictions? And is there a way to account for this error?
Okay, this is a very big problem in Indian astrology. So sometimes, especially people born in India, when they consult me, they will tell me their birth time is 4 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock. They don't give me exact time like 5:33. They'll tell me 5:30, 5. So I know, there is some error. So sometimes what the most important thing,
how precise does it need to be? Just out of curiosity.
To the minutes level at least.
The minute, okay.
Okay. So if it changes, what happens is sometimes the Lagna house can change. So say someone was born at this age, so he can be either Cancer Lagna or he can be Gemini Lagna. So if the recording of the birth time was done wrongly, then maybe the whole sign changes, the entire house system changes. Then everything, the entire reading goes wrong. And actually, from the time of birth, what is more sensitive is actually there are other charts in Indian astrology. So whenever you see your chart, birth chart, you will see Rasi chart. Beside it, you will see the Navamsha chart, D9 chart. Okay, so that chart is very sensitive to the time of birth. So there are many other charts. So all these will change.
But I think the question really was: is there a way to account for this? How do you move forward from there?
Okay, so some people do this birth time rectification. So they will try to, they get a rough idea of maybe the person was born at around 5 o'clock. Then they will try to, put it at 5:01. And then what happens is at 5:01, the entire Dasha system changes. The changes a little. And then they will try to ask you whether during this Dasha period, did you get married? Did you, have a child? So then they will put it to 5:02, and then was it during this period? So they do a birth time rectification. But it's a very difficult and tedious process, to be frank.
So try and get it right the first time.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any scriptures that spell out different parigarams that people are recommended to do when their charts are not good? For example, I think one of the examples mentioned was lighting black sesame diyas, offering specific grains.
Yeah. So this is a good question. Remedies is a very, very important matter. So this falls under the part of agami karma, your own willful actions, and these remedies can be used to alter your existing prarabdha karma. Okay. So for example, someone who has Saturn placed in the sign of Aries, so his Saturn is debilitated. So then we will encourage that particular person to do more of Saturn prayers. Okay. So what is Saturn prayers? So, praying to the Lord Saturn in the Navagrahas, praying to Lord Shiva, because Lord Shiva is actually the controller of all the grahas. That's why if you go to any temple with Navagrahas, you will see Lord Shiva. So prayers to him is important. Then donations on Saturdays. So we try to, channel it towards Saturdays, because Saturn is the owner of Saturdays. So Sunday is owned by Sun, Moon is owned by Monday, Monday is owned by Moon.
Okay, interesting.
Tuesday is Mars. So Mars is called as Sebbai,
Sebbai,
so
okay.
Wednesday is Buddhan. Thursday is Vyalan. Jupiter is also called as Vyalan. Velli is Shukram, something like that. So Saturdays, coming back to Saturn remedies. So in those days, they encouraged people to actually, put the sesame seeds lamp for Saturn. Okay, to burn the sesame seeds lamp for Saturn. So these are all the how you can do the remedies whenever Saturn is afflicted in one's chart. Or also, there are some Saturn nakshatras. We can do donation on those Saturn nakshatra days.
Okay, interesting. I think this will be a very popular question throughout. It's a very timely one. I think someone has asked, how can I keep the Navagrahas always favorable to me? I don't know if that's possible, right? I mean,
first of all, it's also not possible because
yeah.
in Indian astrology, there is a concept known as functional benefics and malefics. Okay, so certain grahas at the time of your birth, they automatically become your friend. Okay, so for Cancer Lagna, Mars is his friend, Moon is his friend, something like that. Okay, but so automatically some grahas become their enmity. So where this will manifest is in the Dasha and Antardasha system. Okay, but what we can do during all these the functional malefic periods, they will run their Dasha periods, right? During those periods, it usually is high stress, depending on their positioning in the natal chart. We can do more of the prayers to them.
Okay. Okay. This is a really interesting one, something that I've been thought about as well. How, in Indian astrology, do we explain natural disasters or plane crashes that affect many people? Are they all having bad charts in that too at the same time?
It does work to a certain extent. You have to look at the charts. You will see that there is some relations with what they have gone through. So even for example, if you look into Saturn, usually those Saturn days, Saturn is actually the number 8. Okay, if you see, the plane losses that happen and everything, usually even the plane numbers, MH17 and all these things, it is actually related to Saturn. So somehow everything will actually be related. So on those days that adds up to 8, 26, 8, all these dates, somehow many of times in reading disasters, these disasters happen during that particular days, when it adds up to Saturn days. Okay, because Saturn is also known as a grief, a graha that represents grief. Okay, he's one signification of his. But yeah, if coming back to the question of whether there will be a relation, definitely there will be a relation somehow.
Wow, that's fascinating. Okay. I think we have a question here. I don't know if I'm reading this question entirely correctly. So if the person who's asking the question is reading, please feel free to correct me. Why do past astrological predictions seem okay, but future predictions seem to be inaccurate?
Past is inaccurate and future is accurate.
Past seems to be accurate, future seems to be inaccurate. I assume they are talking about predictions by an astrologer.
Okay, sometimes you see the signs will not go wrong. Okay, it is the astrologer's interpretation, because we are also not reading anything. We are not like reading of something that is written there. It is just basically based on patterns. We are looking out for patterns in the placement of grahas. So we make a prediction that this will happen, this might happen. But sometimes it doesn't happen because there can be some other factors that is also influencing, and we don't pick that out. See, because you have 9 grahas, you have 27 nakshatras, you have 12 rashis, you have so many varga charts. You don't only have the rasi chart. I only spoke about the rasi chart. You have Navamsa chart, you have Dwadamsha, Rekana, D10, Dasamsa, which represents your career. So many charts, so many angles to look at it from. So definitely there might, and then you have the Antardasha, Dasha system, and then you have Jupiter, Saturn transits. So many things are happening, So sometimes astrologers do make mistakes.
And I think it's never 100% foolproof, right? I think that can't be expected as well. And I think we have a larger, sort of more broad perspective question here. What is the difference between Vedic and Western astrology systems? Even things like feng shui, for instance. What would you say is the difference?
Okay, so this is quite a complex matter. So Vedic astrology differs from Indian astrology by the concept known as Ayanamsha. Okay. So if I've done a video on YouTube.
What is that? What does that mean?
It's known as Ayanamsha. So there is a minus in about 20 over degrees. You have to minus of each planet. So that is why for those, say for example, they are Gemini. In Western astrology, they are considered Gemini. But in Indian astrology, their sun will be placed in Taurus many times. Okay, because there's a 20 degrees that you need to minus. So this is the difference between Western and Indian astrology. The reason is due to this concept known as Ayanamsha. And Ayanamsha is a very, very important concept that differentiates Western astrology with Indian astrology, and it makes Indian astrology superior to Western astrology. So I've done a video on YouTube. For those who are really interested, you can go and watch, because it's quite complex to explain here. So okay, then this is Indian astrology. After that, if you're talking about feng shui is more of placement of things. Okay, it is not really the planetary positions. Feng shui is more related to Vastu Shastra. So in Indian system, we have something known as Vastu Shastra. So that is different from Indian astrology. So we can compare Vastu with feng shui.
No, but there is also something called feng shui astrology, right? The 9-star key astrology. A branch of feng shui.
Yeah. Actually, I've not really gone into like feng shui. Except
yeah, but even my understanding of it is more Vastu Shastram sort of. It's more in that arena as compared to astrology per se. So what you're saying is that Indian astrology is more specific and precise as compared to Western astrology because of the, what did you mention?
Ayanamsha.
Ayanamsha, okay. And just to note that Dinesh has a video on that on your YouTube channel, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, you can watch them.
Okay.
So just what is Ayanamsha? I think that video will appear with Dinesh sharing.
Okay. So viewers, I am sure you'll be interested in watching that. Yeah, so I think we've gone through most, if not all, of the questions. I'd just like to ask, are there any final words you'd like to say? Is there anything you'd really like us to take away from your presentation?
Okay, so firstly, take astrology as a guide. Some people are addicted to astrology. It doesn't work that way, So, like some of them want to keep coming back, saying it doesn't work that way. So, firstly, you just take it as a guide. What most importantly, the takeaway is the remedies, the prayers. That is what that will alter your karma. Okay, no point, people visiting astrology just to know their future. There's no point in that. You need to know what needs to be done. You need to take those actions. And our Indian sages have passed down such a superior knowledge to us. So it's our duty to protect it and pass this down to our future generation.
Thank you so much, Dinesh. And on that very optimistic note, thank you very much. Thank you, folks, for your dynamic, unwavering support yesterday as well and today. Heartened to see all of you. We have 2 more events for today. At 4:30, we have Exploring the Significance of Hindu Deities and a virtual tour of Singapore temples. I won't be moderating that, but it does look very, very exciting. Event 5 is from 7 to 8, a glimpse into the sacred heart of the Ramayana. So please feel free and extend your support for those 2 events as well. Thank you. Can I ask the tech team to get the closing prayers ready, please?
Thank you.
Thank you.
ॐ सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon ahead.
Thank you.